I think it makes sense for me to just jump in for people that don't know who I am and kind of share a little bit about my story. And so I think my story kind of illustrates that you can be at rock bottom and you can climb the top of the mountain on a self-love journey, but also, again, that we're all in a different place. So a little bit about me. I am from Redneckville, North Carolina. I grew up in a family full of love, lots of I love yous and hugs. And but I also grew up in a very body conscious family. And so I was served up body messages from very early on. I had a mom and a granny who were always on a diet, a dad who was a bodybuilder. My parents owned a fitness center for a period of my youth. And so very body conscious family. In fact, to this day, I don't know that I've ever heard my mom and granny compliment themselves. So these messages, I was hit with them from a very young age. And I remember the first time that I felt shameful about my body was kind of when I hit puberty. I had been a dancer and I always loved it. I loved being on the stage. And when I got boobs and hips and didn't look like everybody else in dance class anymore, it was a place of shame for me. And so that's my first memory of hating my body. And so it must have been probably 11 or 12 years old. But I dropped out of dance. And then I remember being in my first Weight Watchers meeting when I was 12 years old. I remember being on vacation and counting points and just feeling so restricted. And then kind of fast forward to the age of 15, I ended up in the hospital. My mom took me to the doctor. I was very, very ill. They actually sent me out to an oncologist right away. My red and white cell count was really out of whack. And so there was suspicion that I might have cancer. So I went to the oncologist. The oncologist actually sent me out to the hospital. I was admitted into the hospital for, I think, about 4 days of testing. It included everything from a colonoscopy to a bone marrow retrieval out of my hip. And ultimately, I was discharged from the hospital with no real answers. And at that time in my life, I was still too naive to understand that I had an eating disorder. And I was laxative dependent at that time. My colon had stopped working and I didn't use the bathroom for 2 weeks. And so it was a very painful time of my life. And as I moved on past that, I think I still felt a lot of shame about being bulimic because I perceived bulimia as a shameful eating disorder to have. If you were going to have one, you wanted to be anorexic because that meant that you were in control. And so that eating disorder actually carried with me for about 15 years, to be honest with you. And there was a lot of highs and lows, times where it would kind of recede and then times where it would really bubble up to the surface and I would end up in a place of depression. I would say that it wasn't until probably maybe about 15 years ago when I met a trainer who had also had eating disorders, who introduced me to clean eating and working out in a way that was different than what I had learned from Weight Watchers and all of that very restrictive eating. And so that was a pretty cool thing to see, that I could have a different relationship with food. But I still hadn't fixed my mind yet, right? So I decided for my 30th birthday, I was going to train for this photo shoot. I was going to get into the best shape of my life and I was going to get these photos. And basically, my pendulum swings very hard. And this was one of those times in my life where it swung very hard. And I spent about 6 months training for this photo shoot. In the last few weeks of the photo shoot, training for the photo shoot, I actually was on a fitness competitor's diet. I was boiling chicken and distilled water, eating asparagus spears. I spent the whole summer avoiding my friends, barbecues, because I couldn't eat fruit. I just was very restricted. And so I found myself knee deep in an eating disorder again. And so here I was, I had these dreams of being a size 4 and I had tied my self-worth to being a size 4. And when I went in for my final weigh-in, I wasn't a size 4. I was a size 8, and I looked incredible. Like when I look back now, I looked incredible. But at the time, I saw that as failure. And so here I had put in all this work, and I still felt like a failure. And so I think it was shortly after that that I was able to lose the eating disorder and really lay it to rest for good. But I still had this messed up mindset. And truthfully, enter the beauty industry, which I worked in the beauty industry for the last 20 years. At this point in time, around the time of this photo shoot, shortly after I opened my salon, and I had no idea how working with women in that capacity was going to impact and lead me to where I'm at today. And ultimately, you work with women in such an intimate capacity, and what you hear is insecurities. You see insecurities, and they just are everywhere around you in the salon business. You see it in your coworkers, you see it in your team, you see it in the women that are getting services. And I had this day, this week, I mean, we were in the middle of the busy summertime, and I had just had this week of grinding away in the salon, spending lots of FaceTime with women, doing spray tans and waxings, and person after person leading with an apology, leading with an insecurity. Oh, I'm sorry you have to look at my fat. Oh, I'm sorry that I'm a mess right now. Oh, just apology after apology. And in that same week, I had asked my team to submit a photo to me so that I could put together this social media montage. And I'm talking about 20-something-year-olds here, right? I mean, 20s, you're flawless. I mean, the way I see it. So anyways, half of them said that they didn't feel pretty or they didn't have a photo that they liked. And then the other half sent me photos that were so photoshopped that it didn't even look like them. And I had just had this week where I just had enough. I was angry. I was frustrated. And I think deep down, I knew that I was mirroring the same insecurities that I was getting frustrated about in other women. And here I was driving to work one day, trying to get myself pumped up to cheer women on through another day of insecurities. And I had this moment. I had this voice, this voice of reason that spoke up. It was different than my inner bully that would normally show up. And this voice was very loud, and it spoke to me in my car on my way to work. And it said, "Baby girl, if you don't love yourself right now, you will never love yourself. And if you want to see the women around you change, you have to be the change. You are perfect right now in this moment, not 5 pounds later, not after you get the next beauty ritual that's going to make you look 10 years younger, right now." And that was the moment that changed everything for me. That was the moment that I knew that I was going to be passing the self-love torch to as many humans as possible, that was where I was headed. Obviously, it's a very vulnerable moment for me because it's led me here to you tonight. But all of that is to tell you that on this self-love journey, there are a few things that I've learned. Before I tell you anything about tips, tricks, and habits, there's a few things that you need to know. Number one, it's a choice. If you want self-love and if you want unapologetic confidence, it's a choice. Number two, it is a journey, not a destination. And it's not linear, because I'm going to show you guys tonight how it has not been like this. It's been up and down for me, up and down over the last couple of years. You're going to work hard, you're going to fall, you're going to get back up. You're going to work hard, you're going to fall, you're going to get back up. And that is where we see that the power and confidence comes in the getting back up part. Number three is, can you step into unapologetic confidence? Hell yes. But I'm not standing here telling you that it's going to be easy. It's not an easy road. I'm going to tell you that you can expect times where you're going to fall back into old patterns. You can expect times where it feels like you're getting nowhere. You can expect times where it feels like you're being challenged every day in the way that you show up and love yourself. And you can expect to trigger other people around you that are going to judge you. And that is all part of the journey. But it's pretty incredible when you have that expectation and you can step into it and know that it's coming. And so what I want to do is give you guys a hand tonight, share with you guys some of the things along the way that, as I look back on the last couple of years, some of the things that I didn't know right away, tools that I've developed, habits that I've stepped into that have really, really helped me show up for myself when everything is just unsteady around me. All right. And so first things first, I want you guys to know that negativity is the fastest way to kill a confident person in the making. And so we have to clear the negativity, like cobwebs from our life. We have to clear negativity. And so tonight, what I want to ask you guys is, how is negativity showing up in your life right now? If you want to speak up, drop it in the chat. That's helpful for me to know that this information is landing. Or maybe you just want to write it down and keep it to yourself. But truly ask yourself, how is negativity showing up in my life right now? For me, it was, and it can still be, judgy family, negative workspaces, negative places, negative friends that maybe I don't align with their values anymore, comparison, and excuses. And so I ask you guys to write down or consider, like, how is negativity showing up for you? And I always like to say, being aware doesn't mean that you have to go break up with somebody. It doesn't mean that you have to leave familiar places right away, but it is helpful to know and be aware so you know what you're up against when you go to those places and you see those people. Number 2 is, are you playing the comparison game in your life? I think social media makes it really, really easy for us to play the comparison game. And later on, I'll talk a little bit about that. But comparison game, I think, will kill any confident person in the making. And as I was thinking about this, I was kind of reflecting back to when I had my first son. And for those of you guys that don't know, my husband and I had 3.5 years of infertility before I held my baby boy. And I remember I was in an auto accident and I injured my back about 6 months before I got pregnant. And so I gained 62 pounds while I was pregnant. And I was very, very ashamed of that. In fact, after I had my son, I was mortified to go into public without my baby with me, in fear that I would run into somebody who would think, oh gosh, are you guys still there? Oh.
We're here.
Okay. My screen disappeared. I'm on Jason's computer.
Well, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, cool. So I was just mortified and embarrassed to go in public. I was scared that I would run into somebody that I would know that would think, God, what happened to her, you know? And that was my insecurity. And looking back on it now, it was a ridiculous thought that I had. I spent way too much time on it. But I remember my neighbor had a baby a few months prior, and she just bounced back right away. She just looked incredible. And I would compare myself to her every time I saw her. And now when I look back, I can see that was wasted energy. She was on a different path, different journey, different body, different experiences. And I didn't need to spend any time on that. So anyways, comparison, I think, is something that we all should be aware of. When it comes to social media, I talk about this a lot, but I say, unfollow accounts that trigger you. If you find yourself following people where you're comparing yourself, unfollow. And then the other thing that I like to ask is, what is your biggest excuse right now? And I think it's smart to write it down. Because if you're going to step into unapologetic confidence, I can tell you right now, there is no room for excuses. there is no greater confidence boost than coming up against an obstacle and then troubleshooting through it and getting to the other side of that obstacle and being like, hell yeah, look at what a badass I am. I just got through that. And so one of the excuses that I find shows up a lot for people is I don't have enough time. And we talked about this a little bit in my 10-day confidence challenge. And so with that excuse in particular, I like to say, maybe do a time audit, because we all have the same amount of hours in the day. And the amount of time that you have probably isn't the issue. It's probably how you're spending your time. So for me, when that excuse kind of starts to creep up, I like to ask myself, okay, let's do a little time audit here. Maybe the way you're spending your time is a problem. And social media is usually a huge time suck for me. So ask yourself that. What excuse keeps showing up right now, and how can I get around it? Troubleshoot 10 different solutions to get around it, because nobody is going to get you to the other side of that obstacle, and you can't just sit there at the roadblock waiting for it. This is so weird to not be able to see you guys. But as long as you guys can still hear me, we're good.
Yeah, we can absolutely hear you.
Okay. All right. So next up, I'm going to tell you guys, being in the salon world, I have seen my fair share of mean girls, but none of them meaner than your inner bully. And if you follow me on social media, you've heard me talk about my inner bully. She is a lying liar. She shows up and she tells me that I'm not pretty enough, that I'm not smart enough, that I don't belong in places like here, talking about self-love and confidence. She's just a bitch. And I found that it was very, very helpful for me. And as I've coached other women and I've talked about this openly on social media, I've had a lot of women reach out and say, I have one too. That's such a good idea. I should name her. Her name is Sybil. I think Rachel, the other day you referenced yours as Gina.
Yeah. It's Gina.
Which I thought I was like, of course her name's Gina. But Sybil, I named her. And I like to say, if you're aware of that inner doubt and that voice, name her or him, if we have any men on the call, but name her. I feel like somehow when I gave her a name, it became easier to identify when she, self-doubt and fear, were speaking to me, instead of seeing that voice as a reality. So if you guys are with me, why don't you drop in the comments what your inner bully's name is, or if you need help, I'll help you give her a name, something really vile.
Everybody should be able to come up with a foul name.
Right. Like I've heard Gertrude. I've heard all kinds of names. So it should be kind of like a hideous name.
Yeah. Kristen said, oh, I need one.
Yeah.
The part is that I don't not like Gina's. I don't think it's a foul name. I just like saying it. So I like to be like, no, you didn't, Gina. Or like, whatever. Feels good.
I love it. Damn, Gina. Yeah. So I think that a good question to ask yourself is, when does your inner bully show up? And if you can really start to pay attention to that, it's a game changer, because you're aware. So, write that down or drop it in the comments for us so we know. For me, my Sybil likes to show up right before I get ready to do something new like this. She shows up in the dressing room, sometimes at the gym, maybe in a fitness class where I feel kind of awkward. I'm vowing to take a dance class this year, a hip hop class, and she'll probably show up there. And so just kind of map out in advance, like where does this voice show up for you? And then from there, I want you to know that when she speaks to you, you can talk back to her. And I've had this happen a couple of times this last year. One of the moments I actually captured on Instagram and shared, and I was in the dressing room. My husband and I went down to Cherry Creek and did some shopping back before the holidays. I went into the dressing room. And as I walked into the dressing room, it was almost like bad elevator music that was playing in the background. And it was don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. It was my old mantra, my old chant that I used to say to myself when I would go into a dressing room was don't look in the mirror, don't look, it'll ruin your day. And all of a sudden it creeped up. And I was thinking about, I think it creeped up because my fitness wasn't as focused, it was the holidays. I hadn't been eating as clean. And so I looked. I was in the dressing room in my underwear, in my bra and socks, mismatched, mind you. And not only did I look, but I took a picture and I later put it on Instagram. And after I posted it, I was like, man, you should delete that. It was a bad idea. And then I had a ton of women reach out and say, thank you. I needed to hear this message. But in that moment where it was going, she was saying, don't look, don't look, don't look. I chose to look. And I took in my entire body. I looked at every insecurity on my body and I rewrote that in that moment. And instead of focusing on my knees, which I've always been insecure about them being chubby, I chose to look at my waist, which is smaller than my hips, and I chose to take it in and rewrite what I was seeing. And so that is a power that we all have when our inner bully is speaking up. And one of the ways that I like to arm myself is I like a good power statement. And we also talked about this in our 10-day confidence challenge, but I think each day, actually, I go into the day with a power statement. Today, it was, you were made for this. You were made for this. And so if you know that you're going into those places where your inner bully likes to show up, I think it's smart to arm yourself with a power statement. Some of the ones that came up during our confidence challenge were, my voice needs to be heard. I am brave. I am strong. I am solid gold. If you guys want to drop your power statements in the chat, that's amazing. But start thinking about what that power statement is for you, because that will arm you when you go into those places that Gina or Sybil or Gertrude show up to tell you what's not reality.
Right. I love that. And I think that without a doubt, everybody should have about 5 I am statements that they are, have in front of them at all times. Maybe you put them on your bathroom mirror. If you're really, really struggling right now with, your confidence in yourself, saying those things every single day, multiple times a day, starting your day off with them, looking yourself in the mirror, igniting the day, like, I am a badass, like straight up looking at yourself and believing that, because you're rewiring your brain. At the end of the day, you're rewiring your brain and you're creating your beliefs. You're stepping into the choice that, I am whatever I say I am. Yep. Not what somebody else says, not what Gina says. Like, I am whatever I say I am. And stepping into that. So those I am statements. I mean, I even have some people, they have timers on their phone, and when their timer goes off on their phone, they are reading those I am statements. So the timer will go off being, and the I am statements come out like instantly. You read through them and you're like, yes. And I love that because it can come out through different times of the day where, you needed it. And it reminded you, all right, like, not feeling good to right, feeling the way I want to right now. So I'm going to step into this.
Yep. 100%. As much as you allow negative talk to happen, you have to combat that with the positive talk. And I read an article today that had research attached to it saying that toxic thinking and toxic, negative talk ignites 1,400 different like emotional and physical responses in our body. So it's real. This is real. So anyways, on that note, I kind of want to like finish off by sharing with you guys a few daily habits that really support that you do you lifestyle, that are going to allow you to show up for yourself every day in the most powerful way possible. And the thing is, it's the small things. It's the small steps that we take that change the trajectory of our life and where we go. And consistency compounds. That's one of my favorite, like, I don't know, quotes or just statements is consistency compounds, because it always reminds me that the little things that I do are going to pay off greatly, and especially in a self-love and confidence journey. So, I have 3 daily habits. Well, three things that I want to share with you guys that I think are really powerful that have helped me over the last couple of years. So the first one is, and if you guys were there for the confidence challenge, you know this one, is owning your daily habits, rocking those daily habits. I call them the 2 S's. It's sweet talk and self-growth. And it is such a powerful way to wake up every day and invest in yourself and send a message to yourself that you are worth it. And so every single day I wake up, I used to wake up, grab for my cell phone, check my email, scroll the gram, and I realized I was starting my day on somebody else's watch. Like, I would get caught up in the emails and the scrolling, and it was just like a horrible way to start my day. And so I actually start my day, I lay in bed and I pray, and then I meditate. And my form of meditation, for all you like pros out there, is about 2 minutes. That's what I got in me. So this whole scenario takes about 5 minutes, but I just lay in bed, I breathe deeply, and really I like to envision how I want to show up in the world that day. I kind of try to envision my highest self and what that person looks like. How does she make other people feel around her? And that's how I start my day. And then once I'm done with that, I get up, I head downstairs, I make my coffee, and then I jump into a journal page, and I kind of spend a few minutes thinking about the day that I want ahead. And then I spend about half an hour either working on self-growth. So the journal is the sweet talk, and so is my prayer and meditation. But my self-growth is either a podcast or sometimes it's a book on Audible. It's something for myself and for self-growth. And I do set my alarm typically about an hour before the rest of my family gets up. And it's early, but it's worth it for me to have that time in the morning before I start my day. It just really sets the tone. It allows me to have more confidence, clarity, and control as I head into whatever is ahead of me that day. And so I really encourage you to maybe adopt sweet talk and self-growth as part of your morning ritual. After I do that, I usually like to go to the gym. And so in general, I like to feed my mind, body, and soul. And that really just makes me feel great. And you know what? There's some days where it doesn't fit in, but I want you to know that you can scale this to fit into the time that you have. If you have 10 minutes, use 10 minutes. You can fit this into your life. And I think it's a powerful way to invest in yourself and show up for yourself from the jump, from the beginning of the day. And then the next one is, and this is a really important one. I know she's going to give me a hallelujah on this one, but you have to surround yourself with unstoppable, driven, bright human beings. Hands down, a self-love and confidence journey is going to require a support squad. And so, I think it goes back to looking at how negativity shows up in your life. And maybe you're not having like a big breakup session with negative people right out of the gate, but what you'll find is as you evolve in your self-love and confidence journey, you will release yourself from people who are negative. And for me, 2 years ago, I finally took a chance on myself. I had turned into a hermit, and I told myself that because I worked in the salon business where I peopled all day, that I just was an introvert. And the truth is, what I've learned about myself is I'm not an introvert. I love being around people. And I just was so insecure about myself that I was scared to put myself into new places, new situations. I just was so uncomfortable and scared. And what I've learned is most women feel awkward making new friends. But once you get over the first awkward couple times of doing it, it becomes really, really easy. And so I like to say, surround yourself with a really incredible support squad. And I did that over the last couple of years, and it's been a game changer. And the thing that I always like to say with that is you have to remember with your support squad that you have to give back too. You can't just be receiving support all the time. And a really cool side effect of giving to others is you start to see all the other beautiful parts of yourself that aren't about the way you look, that aren't about your body. At least that's how it was for me. I started to see like, wow, kindness and giving, like that just makes me feel really good. So I love that little side effect of having a support squad where you give and receive. Let's see. And then final thing that I wanted to share with you guys is, and this is seriously a game changer, and that's gratitude. And I love that, Rachel, you opened up this call with gratitude. It is such a powerful force on a confidence and self-love journey. It was probably about 5, maybe 6 years ago that my husband and I implemented a gratitude board in our life. We were in the middle of an infertility journey, which was heartbreaking. And truly, there were days that I just was so heartbroken. I just wasn't sure how I was going to get through the day. And so I found that grounding myself each day and finding 3 things that I could be grateful about was a really powerful tool. And it really allows you to take inventory of all the abundance and blessings that you already have in your life. And it's quite frankly the opposite of comparison. So if you, earlier when I was talking about comparison, if you were like, yep, I feel that, then having a gratitude practice can be really, really powerful. And when we were going through our infertility journey, honestly, there were some days where all I could come up with was coffee, mascara, and the air that I was breathing on that day because it just felt so empty. But having those 3 things got me through. It grounded me. It made me realize like it could be worse. I could not have coffee. I could not be alive. So gratitude is another one of those daily habits that I think is a really powerful tool to take with you on your self-love and confidence journey. And so all of that is to say that your journey is yours. We're all in different places. And even today, as I look back 2 years ago where I started, I've had some moments this last year that have really tested me where I've been able to see, wow, look how much I've grown. Like, look where I've come. And even still knowing that I have more work and more growth to do. And I think that's the really cool thing about self-love and confidence is it's something that you can truly always be working on. You will never get bored. And I just want to say, kind of to close, as you step into self-love and confidence in your own life, I really want to encourage you to also pass the self-love torch to as many humans as possible, because we have some really beautiful things happening right now in our culture that we didn't have when I was growing up. This body positive movement is incredible, and we have it is a true movement that's happening, and it's incredible to watch. And I think about adolescents that are coming up right now, and I think how amazing it is that they have voices out there right now that are different than what I grew up with. So that's it.
Hey, Susan.
Yeah.
I was actually talking. I was muted, but what I was saying is that was beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing. I would love to share something that I would love people to take away from this call, and that's really taking inventory of your life, and taking inventory of your life of kind of what game are you playing in life. And so, you know, for me, right now we're running this Sports Bra Challenge, and we're going to hit it hard. I believe next week is the week that we really dive into it, and I'm going to be sharing a lot about what the Sports Bra Challenge is and what it's all about. And it truly is. It's about it's about loving yourself, like Susan was talking about, you know, right now, right where you're at, just the way you are, right? And stepping out in that and being and feeling beautiful right now. And I love when Susan talked about that when she was in the car, and it's like, you know what, baby girl, if you don't love yourself right now, just the way you are right now. And that's exactly what the Sports Bra Challenge is about. It's about stepping into that fully and being like, you know what, this is me, this is who I am, and I am beautiful this way. You know, the stretch marks, the, you know, whatever the things are, right? It's like, this is me, and I am beautiful. And you know, for so many of us growing up in a time where I feel like it's brought more to the attention than ever right now that everybody's body's different. But I grew up very much at a time where everybody wanted to look like Barbie. Yep. And that was really what was brought in, you know, in everything that I saw. If you didn't look like Barbie, well, then you probably shouldn't wear a bikini, right? You probably shouldn't show your body. Because it doesn't look this certain way. And what I'm saying is, fuck that. Like, that is bullshit. We shouldn't feel that way. No one should feel that way. And so I really want people to feel that way and bring that message in the Sports Bra Challenge of stepping out into that and saying, you know, this, like, I think this is real life. Right? And this is beautiful. And so in saying that, I also want to talk about the fact that I have been working in the fitness industry for many years now. And an interesting thing that I hear from trainers a lot in the support that I have towards people loving their bodies just the way they are, that they love themselves just the way they are right now, is that I get a lot of kickback from people saying, you know, well, why you're encouraging people that it's okay if they're overweight, or if they're, you know, if they're overweight, like you're being okay with that instead of encouraging them to look, you know, a certain way, or, and I again have to say F that, because that is not what it's about at all. And it's not about encouraging people to be unhealthy. It's about actually encouraging people to be healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so when I asked you in the beginning, what game are you playing? Like, what path are you on? And that's what I want to talk to you guys about is, are you playing that game of, you know, we talk about this a lot in the coaching that I do, of like, you're worried about the scale, that you have to look this certain way in order to step into that bikini or to take that photo. And the scale has to read this certain thing. I think Susan talked a lot about that. She wanted to weigh this certain amount. She wanted to have this certain waist size when she went to go do that photo shoot, right? She was playing and she was walking on the path of we call it the scale game, right? And everything is around that, and it's unhealthy, and it's there's no confidence that lives on that path, and it feels uneasy. It feels lonely. It feels every awful feeling. And you continually are trying to go for that every single day, no matter how bad it feels, because you think that that's what you need to be doing. Or are you playing the game of living a healthy life? Are you playing the game of truly, fully living in joy? And that is that you are loving yourself just the way you are for who you are. You're taking care of yourself by eating good foods, eating foods that make you feel good, that you're moving your body, right? That you're feeding your mind, you're working on your mental and emotional, like, are you doing those things? Are you surrounding yourself? Everything Susan talked about. When you start doing those things, you're walking on a different path. And that path is full of joy. That path is full of love. And that path right there is the path I wish everybody to be on. And all the tools that Susan brought to you tonight, those are the things that are going to put you on that path, right? And pull you off this other one. Pull you off the stinking rat race that is the weight loss game and the oops, sorry, lost you guys for a second. It's going to pull you off that and put you in a much better place. So I just want you guys to take inventory of that, of what game are you playing? You know, what path are you walking on? So that being said, one, I would love if you guys showed up for the Sports Bra Challenge and the message that's behind it. And two, I would love if you totally took what Susan shared tonight and started implementing some of these things into your lives and see what beauty it brings. I just want to, I'll end with this. I feel like I've been living on this path for a few years now. I've been living on the good path for quite a few years now, but I went and did a photo shoot recently, and the first time that I truly noticed, like, without a doubt, I didn't think about that photo shoot once before I got there. I wasn't trying to diet for it. I didn't think anything of it. I just am living that life of like feeling good mentally, emotionally, and physically. And how I, you know, not having a six pack or, you know, walking in there, not having to weigh a certain thing on the scale, and just being able to walk in there in that photo shoot feeling like, man, I love myself. I love myself for who I am. And being able to step into that was the best freaking feeling. Oh, it felt so good, you guys. It felt so good to do that and not be worried at the days before of like, oh my God, I have to look this certain way. I have to do this certain thing. So
I feel like it's like getting out, for me, I always say it was like getting out of prison. You know, it was like I was in prison. And then when I finally allowed myself to just be okay with the way I looked in a photo, you know, it's like getting out of prison.
It is 100%. It is so freeing. So let's just spend the last couple of minutes. If anybody has any questions, we'll go ahead and take them. If not, go ahead and look in your email. I will be sending out this handout that Susan made. And also, just so Susan, how can people find you, just so they know?
Damon Hart on Instagram. And I mean, that's kind of the hub right now. But I do confidence and goals coaching for women, and got a lot of cool things happening this year. I'm just excited to be working with women in this capacity. You know, I loved my time in the salon world. Obviously, it was incredible, and I learned so much about women, but I'm really excited for the work that I've been doing and will be doing ahead, you know, speaking on this topic and just like I said, passing that torch.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I love Jennifer said, I've got a way to go before I do the Sports Bra Challenge. However, I did flash the really fit yoga teacher the other day when my shirt flew up in class, and that felt bold. And you know what I have to say about that is the Sports Bra Challenge is whatever feels bold to you. And I do want to bring that to light. Like if you know, if that is bold for where you're at right now, then yes, like, then I love, like, that's it. It's just about stepping into that place to being like, all right, like, yeah, whatever feels that way for you is fine. So anyway, but I do love that. And that,
if you're at the event, Jen, you're losing the top. I'm going sports.
No, don't make her not want to come.
Well, I feel like it's easier to do it around
a lot of other people.
Because let me just share this with you. The other night, my husband, we were looking at Instagram at fitness people, and there was a guy working out, and he's like, "Isn't that weird? Like, could you imagine if there was somebody in the gym that just didn't have their shirt on?" And when he said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't even get it." Like, you know, this sports bra challenge that's happening. But I thought about it, and I was like, he's right. Like, I don't really see other people in my gym like just in their sports bra or men that aren't wearing a shirt. So I feel like Yeah. I mean, I go to Genesis on the south side. There's a lot of older
Okay, because I see that all the time. That's interesting.
No, I don't. But I feel like it'll be easier amongst a whole bunch of other people doing it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Does anybody have any questions? She said I agree with that. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody who took an hour, basically an hour out of their night to invest in themselves and just, want to grow. And I love that. I couldn't love that more. Seriously. There's no greater investment than you. You are the greatest investment you will ever make. So keep doing that. Keep showing up for that. All right. Thanks, ladies. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Susan. You did amazing. Love your heart.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to all of you ladies that showed up here tonight. If I don't know you, please find me on Damon Hart. Just drop me a DM and let me know that you were here so I can follow your journey too and cheer you on.
All right. Thanks.